Welcome back to Wine and Wine Real Estate Uncorked. Today we have the opportunity to focus on first-time homebuyers.
Exciting.
Very exciting. It's one of my absolute favorite things about this industry, and we're going to dive in, help you learn a little bit more, uncover some things to get ready, and let's jump in.
And share some resources on how we can help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so why don't you kick us off?
Well, the best thing about it is that homeownership is the best investment that people have. It's the American dream. And being a first-time home buyer, it's a special treat. You know, it's scary too. I'll give you that. And I can't tell you how many times we've talked to our clients that are saying, oh my gosh, how am I going to afford that mortgage payment?
Right.
And then a year later, that's like, oh, it was a piece of cake. And they look at their equity position and how they've done things to their house. And it's just the pride of ownership and everything that comes from it. It just throws everyone up to a higher level.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about how to be a first-time home buyer.
And how do we start?
Well, let's start with a plan. Let's start with a consultation, an idea of getting financially prepared, understanding the process, understanding what happens during the whole transaction, and of course the guidance that it takes to have a successful close.
And also choosing your team.
Well, that's part of the plan. So start with that. The first thing we need to do is to have a consultation with somebody to understand what their goals are and where they would love to end up and how you attain that. So you sit down with professionals like ourselves and go walk through the steps it takes to be a home buyer. First thing that you want to talk about while you're sitting down is the financial plan. How do I get qualified for a loan? And you want to be fully qualified in order to get a loan. Now, first-time home buying is interesting because there's a lot of options out there about how you can get help.
Right.
So part of that financial plan is uncovering what can I get to help me buy a home. Not everyone has 20 or 25% down, and not everyone is stock rich, with stock options.
Right.
Sure, there's a bunch of people in the valley here that are like that, but there's a lot of people that are just, day to day, want to understand what it takes to get into the home with the minimal amount of down payment.
Right.
And I think that's where you'd want to start on your financial plan. What do I qualify for?
What are some things that come to mind when you see opportunity with like a first-time homebuyer program?
Mm-hmm.
Are there specific jobs or types of financing?
Most of the first-time homebuyer programs, other than grants, because there are grant programs out there, like the one with the state of California, you have to have a certain percentage of the average income in your area. Mm-hmm. So that percentage varies from area to area. But you have to have, it's called the minimum average income, I believe it's called it. And by the way, we have a great professional to help us with this that goes through these details. And that's the ones for the largest down payment programs. Typically, they count how many people in your household, what your income is. They look at the average income in the neighborhood, in the area, and then determine if you're eligible for that program.
Right.
And a lot of those programs are big money, $150,000.
Sometimes even more.
Well, up to 20%. The one for the state of California that ran out last year quickly, $150,000 up to 20% of the home's value.
I know that there's oftentimes a lot of bank-specific programs that are geared towards nurses or I know
firefighters,
policemen. I just saw one come out from one of the credit unions that was specific to doctors even. Yeah. There's a lot of industry-specific programs that are provided as well.
Right. One of the tools that we use is a database search that we put in the criteria that it requests, mostly your name and where you're trying to buy, your current income levels, and it finds every program that you're qualified for.
Right.
Now, whether you're going to get it or not is a different story because a lot of them, they run out of money. But it's interesting to see how many programs are out there. And some of them are as little as $3,000. Some of them are as much as this one for $150,000. And other ones are very, varied and different. But we should look into that. We use that tool to find out what's out there for you.
Right. I think sometimes people have a hesitation just in conversation with people, even some of my friends, that I make too much money. Mm-hmm. Like I won't qualify for those programs, but I also don't have enough to buy a house.
Right.
So it's that mental block of, do I have the ability, where they just become frozen and don't look into what are their options.
Yeah. And oftentimes for the folks that are making more money, higher income levels, some of the tech companies, you check in with your tech companies or your company, the bio companies you work for. There may be programs within them that help people buy houses too.
Right.
And just no one asks. You just got to ask.
I know some of the relocation options too, they provide certain things.
Assistance.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah. So financial is the biggest piece, obviously, because you need to know what you can buy, what you can afford, and more importantly, not only just what you can afford, but what you're comfortable paying every month.
Right.
You know, sometimes you'll see a house payment, it's $8,000, and the person's like, oh, there's no way. Well, don't buy that house.
Right.
You know, buy something you're comfortable paying, because if you're comfortable paying with it, then you're going to be all right. You're going to be okay.
Or if it's not today, you start a plan. I mean, we've done that many times. That's the whole idea, right? Is
absolutely.
If I am not affording today, but I can change my lifestyle a little bit to have the intention of preparing to be in a position to buy.
I'm smiling because I'm thinking of Miriam.
Miriam's the best story about that.
Just think about that. Someone who just wanted to buy a house. Yeah. We figured it out, you know.
And she did it with her sisters. So they banded together and were able to buy a house. And they have a couple $100,000 in equity now.
Yeah, they're in great position.
Yeah. So, and they're looking at buying investment properties now. My last conversation with them is they're looking now to invest in other properties, which is a beautiful place to be, right? That's how we grow wealth.
That's right. All right. So that's for getting your finances in place, or your financial plan in place, and what you qualify for, and what you want to afford every month. What would be the next step?
Pre-approval.
Yeah, well, the pre-approval is done. Let's just pretend that's done. You're going to have to start actually looking for homes.
We're past total.
So you've hired us. You've hired us to help you. And by the way, nowadays you actually have to literally commit to hiring a realtor with the new commission structure, the National Association of Realtors settlement agreement. You no longer can screw around. You have to actually say, "I'm going to work with you." It could be for a day. It could be for a week. It could be for a month. It could be for 3 months. But you can't just now say, "Oh, go show me a house because I want to go see it." There's a commitment now that buyers have to make with realtors.
And I think that's really important for both sides to have the commitment, because the realtors that you should be choosing should have a very proactive approach of not just finding properties. You're finding a property on the MLS or on Zillow or
online somewhere.
Whatever. The buyer's agent is actually finding off market, utilizing their database. It's a very much realtor to realtor business. You're finding out deals prior to them even coming to the market.
Well, let's just say that's what it should be, because not every realtor operates that way.
Obviously.
Yeah.
That's why we're so good.
Exactly. That's we talk about our plan now. What are we going to do to help find that dream house of yours, or that condo, or that townhome? What are we going to do that's outside of the normal stuff? 94% of the people start on the internet. Buyers, they start on the internet. Hey, I found a house. Okay, that may not be the one, but if we know what it's like, we'll do the research to go find ones that maybe aren't on the market. And now, especially with this whole new concession commission structure, hiring an agent that works for you, that's going to actually do physical, work for you to get out there and beat the bushes for your home is the one you want to work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So once we find the house, what happens?
Well, now it's time to understand what's up with the house.
This is where we shine.
Yeah. Well, negotiating a deal is the best. That's where we shine.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure that we found the right house. And now let's look at what's provided to us for information about that house: inspections and disclosures.
Right.
And we want to be able to sit down and review the items in the inspections that are of concern. I'm going to tell you, every house has an issue. I don't care what house, brand new ones. But some of them are just, they're minor. They're not ones that you need to be overwhelmed with, that this is an issue that would stop a sale.
Well, it's the inspector's job to point out everything.
Right.
So I always talk to my buyers about, these are things that need to be done today, are of concern. These are things that you should do to care for the home. And these are things that are pointed out that you should do, but you're probably not ever going to do unless you're really meticulous.
Yeah. And first-time home buyers, I get it. We're very fearful. It's unknown. We don't know what it's like to own a house. We don't know what it's like to take possession of a property that has a couple minor issues.
Right.
But that's our job, is to be able to walk through those inspections. And by the way, we could feel comfortable talking to the inspectors too. And they're very knowledgeable people. They're professionals. So if there's something that you don't understand, well, let's talk to the inspector so you get a full handle on it. And if it was possible, and this isn't always possible nowadays because most of the inspections are done ahead of time, be there when they're doing the inspections. But that's less likely these days.
But they do have an option. The inspectors will go out for a fee.
Absolutely.
and explain all of the items that they called out in the inspection report, or explain it to your dad, because your dad always wants to be there.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say talk to your dad.
Yeah, your dad wants to go under the house and point out everything that they did when they first bought a house.
And so it's that you have to, again, be very comfortable with what you're reading and the disclosures that the sellers provided and the inspections that either if they provided or we provide with doing our own inspections, which sometimes the seller doesn't have inspections. So we would help with that. So once you're comfortable with that, now it's time to understand, what am I going to do to get this house? How do I make an offer?
Right.
And hopefully, as we're working together, we've done an incredible market research to come up with the comparable value of the home that's for sale. Now, recently, most homes are selling for at list or better, but not all markets are like that.
Right.
So you can't be afraid. We have to analyze the market. And here's the thing I love telling everybody is that the market's never wrong. So when someone says, well, what is the market? The market is what a buyer is willing to pay and a seller is willing to accept. That's the market.
Right.
Realtors don't set the market. We interpret the market. We look at the data and say, this is what that value of that home, the market says the value of the home is X based on homes that sold just like it within the last 30 to 60 days.
Yep.
That's the market.
Yep.
Now, we don't change the market. We just look at the market and say, now, this home is worth X compared to other homes just like it that sold in similar condition, similar neighborhoods. Now, our job is to be able to put you into that home by negotiating on your behalf with the buyer or the seller and the seller's agent. Hopefully, we get to talk right to the seller with the seller's agent there. That's my best. That's where we're at our best.
But most times they're not doing that.
Right. That's old school.
Yeah, that's old school. We're not really doing that much anymore.
Thank you.
But we are very fortunate to have been in the business a very long time. Again, going back to that realtor to realtor comment,
That's right.
It definitely helps to be able to speak to a realtor that you've done successful
deals,
transactions with in the past.
Yeah.
They trust you, and you get the insight as to what, as much as you can to what the seller's looking for, expectations of the offer. The expectation piece, the seller wants the most money.
Right, always.
Always.
Oh.
However, there are some nuances that they could potentially be looking for: a faster close. The property's been sitting vacant.
They may need a couple weeks of the property after close.
Right.
And,
Finding out those details is extremely important.
and Nicolette makes a really great point about who's on the other side, the realtor on the other side. Even if we haven't done a deal with them in the past, we have a reputation, and we have a reputation of closing transactions.
Right.
And people know us. People know that when they're going into business with us to sell a house, or we're representing the buyer, that we're going to make sure that everything is done properly and everything's going to be done on time, and there's going to be no hiccups along the way. And having that reputation really helps when we're talking to an agent about putting our offer in front of the seller.
Right.
So now we've made our offer.
Unless we've terrified the buyer's agent on the other side, because we do that on our listings as well.
Yeah.
Dropping the velvet hammer, I think it's what it's called. Okay, so we've made our offer. We're going to get in contract.
We get accepted.
Hello, that's
and we
what
start
we do.
we start to celebrate. Not quite.
Not yet. Well, it depends.
Yeah, well, we certainly get excited about having an offer accepted. That's the very most next important step. We have an offer accepted, and now it's time for us to perform.
Yeah, so we perform to the terms of the contract. Usually those terms include a deposit due within a day.
Between 1 and 3 days.
1 and 3 days. So we need to make sure our clients are introduced to the title company. They understand all things around wire fraud.
Correct.
We're definitely making sure our buyers are prepared against anything that could come after them for wire fraud, because that's a huge topic we'll talk about on another day.
Yeah, and to make sure that you don't go and buy a boat, car, helicopter, anything, no major purchases. Don't go buy new washers and dryers and everything else for your house. Wait, because we want to make sure that your financial picture does not change from your approval.
Working with the lender to make sure we're hitting our timelines for the financing. If we have any contingencies written into the offer, we're hitting those timelines. Making sure the property comes in at value, or if it doesn't come in at value, that they understand.
Yeah, so it's coming in at value. That's an important piece. Now, in this market that we've been in, typically there's no appraisal contingency. So it's really important that we communicate with the appraiser on how we interpret the market.
Absolutely.
You say, Mr. Appraiser, Mr. and Mrs. Appraiser, these are the comparable sales we used in order to make our offer the strongest one possible based on the market. So we want to share that information with the appraiser so the appraiser can see our approach and then make he has to be objective. He's not supposed to be looking at everything, doing it the way we want it or the way the seller wants it. So we just help him understand how we viewed the market.
But there's also being there brings the human element and the rapport piece, which I'm shocked a lot of buyer's agents don't go to that appointment. And even appraisers on multiple occasions have told me, you're like the only one that goes to these.
Yeah.
And, we just recently had one that didn't have a ton of similar properties that had sold. It's a development that doesn't have a lot of turnover, and people love the community, so they don't leave. So he didn't have a lot of properties within a certain distance that he could use, but we ended up getting an appraisal over because I was able to answer his questions there. Just about Almaden market. Sometimes these appraisers are coming from different areas.
That's right.
I believe this guy came from Fresno or something.
Right.
And of course, he's not going to know the ins and outs of every single neighborhood in Almaden. So it was, a perfect example of, I don't care if it's a all day in our eyes that it's going to appraise. I'm there. I make sure that they understand the market, and I'm there for my clients. And it also helps the listing side too, because we're making sure that we're doing our part in making sure this deal closes on time.
And we're fighting for you.
Yep.
The first time home buyer.
Absolutely.
Any home buyer, but if we're talking first time home buyers here, so we want to make you comfortable with what we're doing and that you're protected.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing. We got you. We got you.
Absolutely.
So we're going down to a list of what's left, right? We got our loan in place. We got our appraisal in place.
We're going to be closing soon.
We reviewed all the disclosures. We accept everything, and it's time to close. And that includes someone having to sign a fair amount of documents with a notary, with a driver's license, and be able to then execute the documents in a legal standpoint that says that you are about to own this home.
Yep.
And then the documents go back to the title company, go back to the lender, and
they fund the loan, and the title company releases it to record.
And by the way, you get to celebrate for real now. Now it's time to pop the champagne or the apple juice or whatever it is that you prefer, and enjoy the virtues of what's about to happen in your life changing dramatically, because now you're going to be a homeowner.
And we give you the keys. I mean, it's a beautiful day. I think one of the best parts about it too is we're there for you for life.
Yeah. We tell everyone, not just sellers, we tell buyers, we've got a person for everything too. You need help with a mover, we got a mover. You need help with packer, we got packers. You need help with painting, we got painters. We got someone for everything, and we share our network of service providers with you so that you can make sure that when you move in that day, the day you decide it's time to take possession, the house is exactly the way you want it.
Right. Yeah. And we have that story all the time. I mean, I have people asking me for where should my kid go to daycare? Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So we're there with you through the process. We are there to help you should something go wrong. How do we get this fixed? Oftentimes we're able to negotiate a 1-year home warranty.
How do I use my warranty?
Yeah, how do I use my warranty? Our warranty's not allowing us to push this through. We have great relationships in helping you solve the problem at hand, whether it be electrical, plumbing, whatever it is.
Velvet hammer on the warranty company.
Yes. But it's a beautiful process, and I have not heard one person say that they wish they didn't purchase a home. They just wish they would have done it sooner.
Yeah, that's usually what we hear.
Yeah.
So it's time now for those of you who have not made that journey to start thinking about, is 2025 the year that I'm going to do this?
Right.
And when someone always says, they say, what's the best time to buy a house? Today. And I mean that generally. It doesn't matter what the market is, because in the history of this valley, people, maybe I'm buying at the top of the market. In the history of this valley, if you go back to 1940, the homes have doubled. Average price of a home has doubled every 10 years since 1940. Now, does that mean your house is going to double in 10 years? Maybe not, but it's certainly going to go up in value. Right. So when's the best time to buy a house? Today. You can't go back in time, so now's the time to do it. But plan first and get ready to set up your appointments in the next few months before the January market hits, and let's go do something.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
All right, guys. guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us on another Wine and Wine Real Estate Uncorked. Today we had the opportunity to focus on first-time buyers, and we are so happy. If you have any questions, definitely reach out to us. We're here to help you plan on your future purchase. Thanks so much.
Thank you.